Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another third-party unlicensed figure unboxing and review video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at another Young Rich Toys product. Now if you've been following along with the journey of Young Rich Toys, they completely burst onto the scene with their amazing Miles Morales releases. They released two different versions, both were fantastic in my personal opinion, and a lot of people did agree with me. But then, for some reason, they took a little bit of a detour and decided to release a realistic style figure being their Ned. And while some people still really did like it, for some reason, I didn't. I didn't think it was a good release at all. It didn't look like the character of Ned Leeds from the film. I mean, bared a passing resemblance, but it wasn't fantastic, not like their previous two releases. Well, now they've released their Peter B. Parker, also based off Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Hopefully, it's a return to form for Young Rich, and this guy is truly awesome, at least I personally hope it is. We're about to find out. Now don't forget, this is unlicensed. That means the company that made this, Young Rich Toys, doesn't hold the intellectual property rights to actually make this or brand this as Spider-Man themed. So they're doing it without permission. So do bear that in mind if you are looking to pick this up. I picked up mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is of course in the description below for your reference purposes only. This is by no means a promotional video. This is a review on a product that I purchased with my own money. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here of course we have the box art for the Young Rich Toys Peter B. Parker. First of all, let me just say how awesome this box art really is. The funny thing is, it's not upside down, it wasn't in the intro clip either. It's supposed to be viewed that way. The logo is the correct way up. Peter B. Parker here is just hanging out upside down with his cup of coffee. Not exactly sure how the coffee is not spilling, but nevertheless, it looks really cool. An awesome image of the city backdrop, and then Young Rich Toys down the side with that sort of holographic effect to the text. I do really like the "Hello, my name is Spider-Man Peter B. Parker" sticker on the back, just like we saw with Miles Morales. Hopefully, as I was saying in the intro, this guy is a bit of a step up from their Ned figure. It wasn't a horrible release, but it didn't really look like Ned. Now, one of the best things about the Miles figure was the awesome 3D style backdrop, and it looks like they've done it once again with Peter Parker. We'll see this later in the video. And without further ado, here we have him, and first impressions are the suit is incredibly vibrant. They have made a few changes since the initial prototype, one of which are the eyes. I just have to say that I'm not really liking the way this head sculpt looks, but I have an idea to modify how the eyes work and get it to look a little bit better. I know what they were going for, but we'll save that for later on in the video. Now you can see there's not only one, but two trays of accessories. So what we are going to do now is get all of this stuff laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the accessories that come with Peter B. Parker. And as you can see, they've done it again. They've delivered here. They've given us a bunch of really awesome scene-specific accessories that I'm super glad that we're getting. If this was an official company giving us this release, I honestly think half of this stuff would be left out, but not with Young Rich Toys. Just like with their Miles figure, they've gone above and beyond. Speaking of that, let's take a look at the display base first. It's a nice centerpiece style display base, a really awesome metal nameplate that says Peter B. Parker and Spider-Man on the top. But what I mean by saying above and beyond is they've given us two options for the crotch grabber. You've got just a regular one that pegs in Hot Toys style. Then you have this adapter. It pegs in to the crotch grabber style clamp, but it also has a threaded section. If you have a dynamic flight pole, you can still use it with this display base. Granted, they could have gone a step further and included that, but with the amount of stuff here, I personally won't be complaining. Now we'll take a look at some of the more boring stuff first. We have the usual array of webs. These are pretty much carbon copies from everything that Hot Toys gives us, all the way down to the funnel attachment. It literally just connects to some of these various webs. But if you're going to go to the effort of copying the Hot Toys webs, Why not give us the best one, the spooled up one, the newer design? Still not exactly sure why they didn't do that. He does come with his little bow tie from the waiter scene. That is a really awesome deep cut that, honestly, I don't know how many people will be displaying their Spidey wearing this. I may have to do it just every now and then to spruce him up a little bit. He does come with the drone that he obviously gets hit in the head with in the film. It doesn't really have an ability to hover or sit anywhere in the air on the display base. You can kind of have it on the ground and pose Spidey like he's just been whacked in the head by it. It's super simple, it's literally just a black, unpainted plastic thing, but I really love their attention to detail with including that drone. You also get a Spidey pizza with a slice that can be removed. He does come with a cardboard box that you can assemble into a pizza box, but no instructions on how exactly to do it or where to glue, so I personally haven't been able to figure that out as of yet. He does come with a coffee cup. It's empty. It would have been really awesome if it was filled with coffee, had a little ripple effect on there, but I'm not complaining. The fact that they included a coffee cup is still an awesome touch. You do, of course, having a Spidey figure, get 2 web shooters. They do have holes in there so you can plug in the webs. They're a nice comic book style design, very cartoony. I really like how they come across. You also get a little mobile phone. Exactly the same as the one we got with Miles, and the same thing can be said for the Goober. It's got a little Spidey logo on there, and it is nicely painted with some silver up the top. Now, to go along with the phone, you do get a sticker sheet and a couple of screens, as well as these comic book words, the onomatopoeia. I really like it. I love this huge Spider-Man one. You may be thinking, Justin, what on earth can you do with these? Well, imagine, if you will, that you have Spidey displayed in your glass cabinet. You can stick this on the back and have a really nice sort of header to your Spider-Man shelf. You also get the pizza box stickers and a bit of an oil stain. It's a little bit cartoony, mind you, but I still like it. An image of MJ and also the comic that obviously slaps down when they're introducing this version of Spidey. You also get a few hands, but I have a little bit of a complaint about the hands. You get a wide enough array. You've got the sort of web crawling ones, some nice detail on the underside with the web shooter activator, and the webs are nicely painted, but you don't get any fisted hands. The one that comes on him in the body is the web swinging hand. You don't just get normal fists. For any of you out there who know anything at all about making a fist, the thumb goes over the side, not over the top, so this is far less than ideal. But then again, he's Spidey, you're probably going to have him posed in some dynamic sort of pose anyway. You do also get this piece, which attaches to the neck clamp. It's the Spidey sense effect, and I really like this. This is super simple. Hot Toys did something like this as well, and I'm glad that Young Rich Toys have copied it. Now, you do get a few options for the Spidey mask. This one isn't to be worn, it's to be held. You can't fit a head through that teeny tiny gap there, but you can have him holding it if you do want to go ahead and use the Peter B. Parker head sculpt. And might I just say, this is some fine work by Young Rich Toys. I love the sculpt here, and the paint applications. Just look at that 5 o'clock shadow. It's super finely detailed. I'm really impressed. And you can see the hair has a wash over the top. It's very messy. It does have a neat effect. You can remove the hair, then take this separate sculpted mask piece and slot it over the top like he's just peeled back his mask. People have been asking for ages for Hot Toys to do something like this with their Spidey figures. They haven't done it, but Young Rich Toys is here, and they certainly have. You can see the mold, the sculpt on this mask is very different to the actual mask and the handheld one. The web lines are really raised and the eyes are much bigger, but because it's a separate piece that can be removed, I'm not too mad about it. I'll probably be having him displayed like this, just with the hair on anyway. The seam is barely noticeable. Now, we will be getting a different expression with the other Peter B. Parker figure that's coming out, the sort of hobo look, if you will. I will be reviewing that, so definitely stay tuned to the channel. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. It's this head sculpt, not the shape or the fact it's covered in material. It looks quite good, but the eyes. Why are they so horizontally placed? That was the first question I asked myself when I unboxed the figure. Well, I actually did devise a solution to it. You can, of course, remove these eyes. Then I took some alternate eyes just to do a bit of a test. So they look like this out of the box with a little rectangular section. I removed it and then glued the magnet slightly off center. That allowed me to then take the eyes and magnetize them on, but then angle them up to give him a much more Spidey-like look. Tell me that doesn't look way better. Granted, you shouldn't really have to be modifying things, not at the 1/6 scale price point. I hear people saying that a lot these days, but if it means making your figure so much better, it's well worth doing. It's a super simple mod, and once you do it, you can have a little bit of emotiveness. So if you do want to have them a little bit more horizontal, like they come out of the box, you can still do that, but the added benefit is you can pivot them up and give him a little bit more attitude. I will be displaying my Spidey like this in the cabinet, rather than having the eyes going horizontally. Now, before we take a look at the figure himself, we will be taking a look at the included backdrop piece, so without further ado, let's bring it out here. And here we have it, the backdrop piece fully assembled. It does come in various components, the front, the sides, and of course the back. But when you assemble it, you have a really awesome 3D city effect. You've got the skyline down the bottom, and then you have kind of the night sky up the top, where you can have Spidey swinging or leaping, or you can just have it sitting there in the background. It's a nice touch, and I'm super glad they included it with Peter. And here we have him standing straight up and down the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. I have to say, now that I've done that iMod, he looks infinitely better. Let me know what you think of the iMod down in the comments below, but I think it's relatively essential. When you first open him up and you'll see those horizontal eyes, you will be holding your head saying, what on earth have I done? But trust me, once you implement the fix, he actually turns into a really strong Spidey figure. I know what they were going for with that design to the eyes. In a couple of scenes, he did make that expression. But don't do that to all of the eyes. Spidey doesn't look like that all of the time throughout the movie. Why sacrifice the look of him 99% of the time just to get that 1% look 100% right? I don't exactly know why they did that. Nevertheless, now it's fixed, I'm in love with this Spidey figure. Granted, he is not perfect, and we'll touch on that throughout the course of this video, but he's pretty darn good. There are a couple of things which they could have done to make it even better, but 99% of this figure I still really enjoy. What we are going to do now though is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal with, of course, my iMod now fully attached and completed. And I have to say, it does make a world of difference. Granted, you shouldn't actually have to do that. It was pictured with a fully plastic molded head, and the eyes looked something like this, a hell of a lot better than how they did out of the box, which was something more along the lines of that, which is far less than ideal if you ask me personally. They should be angled. They did it on the Miles battlesuit figure, so I don't know why they didn't do it here. It's just super peculiar. But nevertheless, now it's fixed. It's looking really darn good. Now let's talk about the sculpt itself. It's a nice shape, except for this tiny little dongle on the top here. I would have preferred a sculpted plastic head like we've been seeing from Hot Toys and their PS4 Spidey figures. I do, however, like the material. It's got this really nice sort of Z effect all over the entire thing, and the webs do nicely match the outfit because, of course, it's the same material. You do get a little bit of bunching at the neck, but granted, if you spend some time and futz it and sort of push it up into the head sculpt, you could probably eliminate most of the bunching. Now, unfortunately on mine, I'm not sure if you can see, but the spider, just that leg there, is starting to lift a little bit. Not ideal. I will have to put a tiny drop, and I emphasize tiny, on that end of that little spider leg there of super glue just to keep it in place, because I do not want that tearing itself off. Now, yes, you can see some anatomy through the suit. I don't know why these third-party companies keep the stock bodies the way they are. It would have been very minimal effort just to completely remove that anatomy and you wouldn't be able to see it through the suit itself. Yes, people are going to head down to the comments and let me know it's there. Don't worry, I can definitely see it. Now, as you can see, on the back you do have a Spidey logo. This blue section is made out of this rubbery style material, just like we saw with the Battlesuit Miles. I've had my Miles in a relatively dynamic pose for quite some time, and I haven't had a huge issue with it. Fingers crossed this Spidey figure is the exact same thing. I do think it is relatively sturdy. It is still this rubbery style material though, so just exercise a little bit of caution. Now back to that plastic head sculpt. If they had done it and it had looked like the hands do in contrast to the outfit itself, probably wouldn't have liked it all that much. So I am glad that they have gone with the fabric now, because if they can't quite get the match just right between the hands and the bodysuit, I think the head would have looked equally as frustrating in terms of not matching quite right. Now moving down to the feet, I do quickly want to make note of the fact that they have fixed the ankle issue. On the Miles figure, they had one of those swivel and then you had to rotate the joint to get side to side, but not the case here. You do have a proper ball joint with a full-on range of motion. That allows this guy to stand a lot better than Miles, but also have an actual functional ankle pivot, which mine, I could never really get that joint to rotate inside the suit. It was a bit of a pain, but not the case here with Peter B. Parker. They definitely have fixed it. There's only one more thing that I want to note on this figure before we move on, and it's the fact that they've actually done something quite unique. When you see him just standing straight up and down, he's perfectly flat here, but if you did want to give him that gut, you can actually push out that joint, then pull in the top joint to give him a little bit of a pot belly, just like we saw in the movie. That's a really nice touch. I don't know if it was intentional or just sort of a byproduct of the choice of body they've made here, but you can have it perfectly flat and smooth-abbed, or you can have the pot belly. That is a really awesome feature. Now before we move on, I quickly wanted to show you what it looks like with the Peter B. Parker head sculpt on there. You will see it obviously towards the end of the video in a few poses, but it swaps out super easily and I think it looks really good. I think it suits the body, doesn't look too small or too large, and one of the coolest things, as you saw earlier, is you can actually take the Spider-Man mask and slot it over the top so it looks like he's just removed his mask. It's a super awesome effect, and if you hadn't told me that it was going to be removable, I wouldn't have really been able to spot that seam because it is rather clean, and it is, as I said, a super simple and easy thing just to swap on there and spruce up your Spidey figure. Now at this point in the review, you're probably screaming at your monitors. You've probably already gone down to the comment section to let me know that I haven't installed the web shooters. And yes, I didn't do that by design because unfortunately they are super tight to fit on there. These were the ones that were included with the Miles figure, so they are a little bit too small. Granted, they can stretch over the suit, but because they are so tight, they push the suit up, which causes a lot of bunching. Then when you go ahead and pop the hand itself on there, it looks a little bit ridiculous. You can futz with it and get it to look a little bit better, but there's always going to be that bunching. What's the solution, I hear you ask? Well, I would personally go ahead and heat this up and then use something to stretch it out just a little bit more. That way it can nicely sit over the fabric of the outfit. But yes, that's why you haven't seen the web shooters thus far on the suit. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have Peter B. Parker with his unmasked head sculpt on, standing alongside the Young Rich Toys Miles, the first release. And now seeing these two standing together, I think it kind of makes it all worthwhile. They have improved a few things since they released their first Miles figure, notably, obviously, the ankle joints. Peter can stand up absolutely no problem, and also a couple of other things, such as the paint applications. I think they've been getting better and better. But now I see them standing together, I love the size difference between these two. Miles is obviously a lot shorter. He's a kid, it makes sense. Peter is a lot taller. I really like how they look standing together. And here we have it, the moment that I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for. It's Peter fully suited, wearing the mask, standing alongside the battlesuit version of Miles. This looks straight up awesome. I love how this comes across. Finally, we can recreate a bunch of scenes throughout the course of that movie. Granted, when the hobo version of Peter does come out, then we'll be able to recreate even more, and with the plethora of accessories that they give us, it's going to be a super easy task to do. I cannot wait to see if posing with Peter is actually getting this Peter B. Parker. I can't wait to see what kind of poses he comes up with in his videos. And finally, here we have him standing alongside an MCU version of Spidey, more specifically the tech suit Homecoming Spidey, and I like the size difference here. Tom Holland being a kid, he's going to be a little bit shorter, and this being an adult version of Peter Parker, he's going to be slightly taller. I think the scaling works quite nicely. The body proportions are drastically different. This is an animated version of Spidey. It's more cartoonified, if that's indeed a word that you could use. I don't even know if that's a real word, but that's exactly what he is. He's more lanky, he's more stylistic. I really like how it comes across. Very, very different to this MCU version of Spidey. But still, if you did want to have them on the same shelf and do a all-out Spider-Verse display, I think it would still look really awesome. Just going over articulation on Spidey here. Now bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now starting off with the head sculpt itself, it is on a fixed neck, but it still does have a fairly decent range of motion. Forward, back, swivel, and pivot side to side. The arms themselves go up to about there before they start bumping into this torso piece. They are on ratchet joints. You could potentially force them up a little bit higher, but I'm not going to. I don't really feel any butterfly motion here, maybe a teeny tiny bit, which is not ideal for a Spidey figure. Going forward pretty much the full way. There's no swivel at the bicep, but there is a bend here at the elbow which does incorporate the swivel, also on ratchets. You do have a regular 1/6 scale joint for the wrist itself. Now for the torso, you do of course have a crunch. It doesn't crunch forward a hell of a lot, but going back is a little bit more significant. The legs themselves go forward pretty much the full way. They are nice and tight. Going out, the exact same thing. Swivel at the upper thigh, double bend there for the knee, and of course down here at the ankle, a regular 1/6 scale style ball joint. Just wrapping up on the Young Rich Toys fully suited version of Peter B. Parker. Now I know it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride throughout the course of the video because we've seen really good stuff and we've seen really not so good stuff. There's stuff I've had to mod, there's stuff I've had to change. Now this figure I think I'll only recommend to a certain group of people, those that are okay with having to change a few things on your figure. If you see this video and you say to yourself and you're heading down the comments to tell me, Justin, for X price, we shouldn't have to do X thing. Well, I'm sorry to say, this figure probably isn't for you. You will have to do X thing to get it to look as good as it possibly can. If you're not comfortable with doing that, maybe pass on this one. But for those of you who are willing to put in a little bit of extra work, and it's not even a hell of a lot, to get it to look as good as it can, you are going to love this Spidey figure, as I now personally do. Now that I've implemented those changes, he is a super strong Peter B. Parker figure from the Spider-Verse movie. I don't think that other third-party companies could even come close to what they've delivered here, specifically with the amount of accessories, the quality of the paint applications, the newer style body, and of course the suit. It looks really good. I would like to see potentially some other companies attempt some Spider-Verse characters that Young Rich Toys haven't done yet. Obviously we do have the SPDR, the bot with Penny Parker. That'd be awesome to see as well. And hopefully someone gives us a Spider-Verse comic book cartoony style version of Spider-Man Noir. That would be awesome as well. Now, if you are looking to pick this up, I purchased mine from toyswonderland.com. The link for that is in the description below for your reference purposes only, because don't forget, this is an unlicensed product. That means Young Rich Toys doesn't hold the intellectual property rights to, well, actually make this figure, so do bear that in mind when you are thinking about picking him up. Also, why not check out 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video. I now personally do.